Good morning, everyone. This is your June monthly weather ready briefing for eastern Montana and northern Wyoming. Just to start us off, do you remember 1 year ago today when the heat really started to kick off across the region? Back 1 year ago today, Miles City peaked out at 105 degrees, Billings 101, and Sheridan 100. That was the start of the heat that continued all the way into July and portions of August. June 26, 2012, the following day, Miles City hit an all-time record high of 111 degrees as the heat expanded across much of eastern and northeast Montana. Baker at 108, Jordan at 104, Glasgow at 101, just as the heat continued to expand off to the northeast. As a recap for May 2013 conditions, here are some graphics for temperatures. You can see much of the country in the white indicated near normal temperature conditions, which with much of the northern Rockies just indicating slightly above normal conditions. So overall, a fairly tranquil month when it came to temperatures. Moving on to precipitation totals. A corridor of above normal precipitation occurred across the northern Rockies into the northern plains and Midwest, where many of these states experienced too much above normal precipitation conditions. That includes Montana. Wyoming was closer to normal, with above normal conditions indicated across northeast Wyoming and far northern Wyoming. Here's our past precipitation trends in the last 30 days. So this takes us from the end of May through the mid part of June. We've had some significant precipitation occur across the area. The upper graphic in the upper right-hand corner indicates total precipitation that accumulated across the region. You see a lot of orange and even purple shades. This is precipitation totals of anywhere from 5 to over 10 inches, with some localized heavier amounts in there. On the lower left-hand corner, this is your percentage of normal from the past 30 days. You see widespread conditions across most areas east of the divide, where these precipitation totals were about 300% of normal. As you progressed into far south central Montana, especially into the Livingston area, conditions were closer to normal levels and even below average precipitation across far southwest Montana. So the corridor of heaviest precipitation was areas east of the divide, eastern Montana into northeast Wyoming. On last month's call, we did talk briefly about a precipitation event that finally helped us to begin a green up after a fairly dry late winter, early spring. And that's your rainfall totals on the graphic on the left. After our call last month, we did see another significant round of precipitation that did produce some significant impacts across the area, with a lot of rural travel difficult to impossible at times, given the widespread nature of the rainfall. Areas shaded in blue, this is a graphic specifically for south central Montana and northern Wyoming. But those areas are all precipitation totals of greater than 3 inches. But there's a lot of this dark blue area where rainfall totals over this time period exceeded 5 inches. So a significant amount of moisture occurred across that region. So we thought we'd show you our latest climate trends for our key climate locations across eastern Montana and northern Wyoming. The upper left-hand corner, we'll start with Glasgow. The bottom graphs are your precipitation totals, and anywhere you see the dark green is precipitation. This is accumulated precipitation, and the dark green indicates above normal for since January 1st. So for the most part, Glasgow was near to slightly above normal in precipitation totals into early May. Then our significant spike in precipitation late May and June has put Glasgow area well above normal in the precipitation department. Slide over to the right, we see the chart for Billings, where we had significant precipitation deficits as we headed into the middle part of May. And so these significant rainfall amounts pretty much cleared out that deficit, and we were in a period of slightly above normal precipitation for a short time in late May and early June. And totals have leveled off since then a little bit, officially at the airport anyway, and officially we are slightly below average. So still slightly abnormally dry conditions across the region. Certainly there are pockets where there has been heavier rainfall across this region. Down in the bottom graphs in the left-hand corner, Miles City, where we did have precipitation deficits heading into late May, but the significant precipitation amounts that we already highlighted in previous graphs has really put totals well above normal over in that area. And then down in Sheridan, fairly typical precipitation conditions throughout the year, as this plot remained fairly close to normal levels with just a few spikes and now slightly above normal. So there's our latest trends across the region. These are some interesting satellite pictures, and what I did was a comparison with showing the green up, comparing last year at this time and this year. The top image shows the brownness across, this is just zoomed into south central Montana and northern Wyoming, where we experienced the most dry conditions last year. And you can see the light colors, the lack of green up, and then you fast forward to this time, the current time in the bottom chart, where you see fairly decent green up across much of the area. So you can definitely see the difference of what a year makes and how the precipitation has impacted the grasses out there. So some of the impacts that we did receive from the heavy rainfall in late May and into early June. These are some pictures out of the Milk River Basin of some high waters on Brazil Creek and Triple Crossing dam failure southwest of Glasgow, and then Peoples Creek flooding on Highway 2 near Dodson. So those are some pictures courtesy of the Glasgow office. Last year we talked about the not only the deficits of rainfall, but also deficits of any kind of severe weather, not typical for June in Montana. Well, this year has been much more typical for thunderstorm activity and severe weather. I've got images here with all the severe weather reports that we've received basically in the last month or so. The left-hand image are hail reports. Some of the most significant hail was mainly from Billings areas westward, and then we had another corridor of several storms producing some hail from Story to about Sheridan in north central Wyoming. So those were the two corridors of the most significant hail. But you can see widespread areas of severe weather across the entire region. Then the upper right-hand corner, we're talking about wind, wind gusts, wind damage, and even a few tornadoes. You can see those a little bit more widespread nature in the wind gusts and wind damage reports all the way from south central Montana, northeast Montana, even into northeast Wyoming. But even a few tornado reports. We had one storm system that produced weaker tornadoes. They weren't the typical supercell thunderstorm tornadoes that we advertise in our spotter training. They were weaker tornadoes. They touched down briefly, caused minimal damage. We had one reported just north of Baker. And then at the bottom right corner, those are the locations where we've received reports of flash flooding. One of the biggest areas right around Roundup in some of the burn areas. We were worried about some of the threats down there earlier in the year, and that has come to reality there. We've had upwards of close to a half dozen flash floods in some of those burn scar areas down there. With any kind of heavy rain, thunderstorm activity moving over the area, we have elevated water flowing through that area. Here are some of the images from some of the flash flooding that we had reports of. The left-hand pictures are from the Dull burn scar area outside of Roundup, and this has occurred several times, unfortunately. They've been under the gun with several rounds of thunderstorms up there in the past 30 days or so. A decent thunderstorm produced a significant rainfall intensity rate down in Sheridan, where they had some widespread road flooding and a few structures impacted. And then with some of the more widespread rains earlier in the month, down in some of the creek flooding down in southeast Montana. This is Rosebud Creek flooding images on the bottom there. On to hail. Again, those hail reports I talked about down around from Story to Sheridan. This are some pictures on the left there of some damage to rooftops in Story, and some of the hail images that we received, well above even golf ball size hail. And this is a real interesting image on the right here. These are some pictures out of Treasure County, where we saw one supercell thunderstorm just produce a torrential amount of hail, and it actually built up into some of the low-lying areas and produced, if you can see this, looks like a canyon through here, but all this deep hail, probably at this point 4 or 5 feet deep, had accumulated in this low-lying area and almost formed a little Grand Canyon of hail through here. This picture was actually taken about, I believe, 6 to 8 hours after the storm had rolled through. So just some significant images out of there. And one of the roads down in that area, they needed to plow through. You can see the big piles of hail along the edge of the road that were over the top of these trucks. So significant amount of hail with that activity. Probably our most significant wind event was down in Billings on the 13th of June. This was actually a late morning event that occurred, and we had some significant winds roll through, a lot of power lines down, trees down, power outages. So that was probably one of the more significant events that we saw for wind damage and impacts. And then on to funnel clouds and tornadoes. The picture on the left there, funnel cloud over North Dakota. This actually did touch down to a tornado, and this was one of those non-supercell tornadoes. Then on the right here, this was a funnel cloud on June 19th. You can see the sharp edges to that. We had tight rotation with that funnel cloud there. And on June 22nd, up in the Crazy Mountains, we saw we got a picture of a decent funnel cloud out of that area as well. It's just kind of a review of many of you have been through our spotter training, and this is kind of a review of the different cloud types we get across the area. And I thought I'd provide just this little bit of a review, because we get a lot of funnel cloud reports that many times are clouds that form a funnel shape. But one thing we have to be watchful of, a funnel cloud is you're going to have some real tight rotation. You can see the picture on the lower right hand corner. You see really sharp edges to this funnel shaped cloud, and if you were to look at this in real-time motion, you would see some spinning motion in that. So then you have a funnel cloud there. Now many times this picture on the left will be reported as a funnel cloud. This is a wall cloud, and it forms underneath the updraft of a thunderstorm here. It's a lowering cloud base, and as air comes in from all directions to fill this void under here, as air rises into this updraft region, you will get this lowering cloud base, and as air comes in from the rain-cooled area, you actually can get a tail kind of form on that. And many times people are indicating that this is a funnel cloud, but actually, again, you'll want to look for some tight rotation. This could be a precursor to a funnel cloud or tornado. It's the ideal location for tornado development. In fact, we even had a tornado warning out on this storm. But once again, in order for it to be an actual funnel cloud, you'd need real tight rotation. And in this image, there's no rotation there. It's just that lowering cloud base. And then on the top image, this is a shelf cloud. This is a cloud that's on the leading edge of a thunderstorm moving into the area. Many times this will produce some higher winds as it passes, but that's out ahead of a storm, not under the updraft region on the back edge of the storms, where you would typically see tornado development in a wall cloud or funnel cloud areas. Here's some nice photo galleries, some pictures courtesy from up in Glasgow area. Supercell in the upper left-hand corner here near Malta. You can see the, almost a flying saucer appearance. That's indicative of a rotating updraft or a supercell thunderstorm. So these are the storms we really concentrate our efforts on for impacts for hail and damaging winds and the possibility for tornadoes. The picture on the upper right-hand corner is what we call ACUS, Alto Cumulus Castellanus. It's actually, if you look closely by the sunset there, or the sunrise, sorry about that, the sunrise there, you can see these little peaks in the clouds where you get little towers build up. This is early in the morning now, so what that's kind of indicative is the atmosphere is already unstable before you actually get the heating of the day. So anytime you see cloud towers like that early in the morning, many times that will tend to evolve into the potential for severe weather later in the day, because you already have that instability in the atmosphere in the morning. Once you get the daytime heating going, these clouds will eventually develop into these big thunderstorms. And then on the lower image here, this is a roll cloud. This is really a low-hanging cloud that can tend to have rotation or appears rolling as it moves, as it surges out ahead of a thunderstorm. So there's rotation more on a horizontal plane. It's not associated with any kind of frontal clouds or tornadoes, but it's just a real low-hanging cloud, and a really spectacular cloud to see if you've ever witnessed one of those. So how does all this severe weather and heavy rainfall impacted our drought conditions? This is the latest drought comparison. I've got mid-May on the left-hand side, transitioning to the current drought monitor on the right. So you can see on the right, we've really gotten rid of a lot of our extreme drought conditions across south central Montana that was centered over Billings and areas of south central Montana. That has been pared back quite a bit by the rainfall, and even and all the moderate drought conditions across southeast Montana has whittled away now, and so we're cautiously optimistic. We've helped the drought quite a bit, but certainly the next few months will play a role in how this further evolves into the summer and fall. Indications are as the pattern is changing as we progress into the next 10 days even, and then as we progress into the rest of the summer here. We certainly will see warmer and drier conditions move into at least early next week now. And the image on the left there shows a corridor of above normal temperatures across much of the western half of the United States, and unfortunately a corridor of below normal precipitation projected from the Pacific Northwest into the northern Rockies, including Montana and Wyoming. So certainly drier and warmer conditions in the shorter term anticipated. And then once we progress into the rest of the summer, into the fall, we still see this corridor of above normal temperatures anticipated across all of the southwest into the northern Rockies, and still that corridor of below normal precipitation from the Pacific Northwest into the northern Rockies. And as a support to the fire weather season, as we continue to dry out now, all the National Weather Service offices in Montana are participating in fire restrictions calls with the BLM, Billings, Miles City, and Lewistown specifically. And in Billings, we're actually experimenting with a pre-call briefing. So the Friday prior, we're going to be distributing a short YouTube video that outlines current conditions and short-term forecast conditions that will hopefully assist participants in these restrictions calls in their decision-making prior to the conference call, whether they need to further their restrictions or back off on restrictions and things like that. So we hope that will be helpful in that regard. And then lastly, just want to remind everybody this is Lightning Safety Awareness Week nationally, and so we appreciate any advertisements you can get out there. We've got information on our website, and we've been posting things on social media, and so we appreciate that awareness campaign helping get information out. When thunder roars, remember, go indoors. So that concludes our briefing for June. Our next briefing will be Tuesday, July 23rd. Thank you.